And welcome to another segment of Delta Sip. It's your girl Angie Bugner right here, and I have a special guest on today. And this person was one of my students when I was teaching at the university. Yes, I taught at Mississippi Valley State University. For some of you all who may not know that, and she was one of my good students, quiet, reserved. But listen, before we get started with her, I want you guys to please, if you're out there, share this link right now to your social media so that your friends can see it. And Leasy, make sure that you share it to your social media as well so that your friends can see it. If you go to the Mike Magazine on Facebook, you will be able to access this live right now as we are streaming. Okay. And also, we love to ask that you subscribe to the Mike Magazine on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Okay. Now, with that being said, it's Black History Month, right? And I am so glad about it. If you are following us on the Mike Magazine on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you'll see that we have put out there a um, tribute to celebrating the month of February, even though I celebrate Black History every month regardless, right? So we want to acknowledge the fact that we do have this time dedicated towards our heritage. And on tomorrow, first off, I want to give a happy birthday to my baby cousin Kimberly Strong Barnes. It's her birthday today. Hey, Kimberly, it's your birthday. Go shout it. It's your birthday. And tomorrow will be my birthday. And so I don't really make a big deal about my birthday, but I'm glad to be here. It's a lot of people who didn't make it. And so I want to say happy birthday to all of the birthdays in January, all the birthdays in February. Now, with that being said, I want to bring on LaSharda Leasy, who was again one of my babies when I was teaching at the university. I taught criminal justice. And so being in the social sciences, I don't know if you guys ever pay attention, but if you know somebody who is part of the social science uh, discipline, we study people, we research things, we dig deeper. And the reason is because in that discipline, we want to know why people do what they do. We know people, will react a certain way or do a certain thing, but with a social scientist, we dig deeper. And with that being said, I want to bring Miss Leasy on. I've always called her Leasy, always called her by her last name, call all my students by their last name. I want to bring Leasy on and just tell us a little bit about who you are. And I know that you are doing great things in the Mississippi Delta area, but tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll go into that.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is LaSharda Leasy. So I'm born and raised in Greenville, Mississippi. Left Greenville in like 2012 after I graduated from high school. Went to school at Ole Miss for a couple of years, and I came back home and I finished at Valley. And oh my gosh, it was one of the best experiences of my life. Some of the most decorated professors, wonderful people that I had ever had. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I could definitely say about Valley, they're personally invested in their students'
Yeah,
education, especially if they see that that's something that you're enthusiastic about. One
yeah.
thing that I learned is not the institution, it's how you apply yourself. Because I was tried. Like, they really, really make sure that you understand the curriculum, that you can apply it to real life. So I'm thankful for this.
Hmm.
Mrs. Buckner now. I'm sorry. But I'm thankful for all of my professors. And I'm just thankful to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. We're so glad to have you. Um, let's talk a bit about um just a second. Let's talk a bit about Delta Think Tank. What is Delta Think Tank about?
So as of right now, I'm posting a lot of things about the news that are happening in the world and also happening locally. Like I said, it's Delta Think Tank. So originally I started it because like I said, I'm born and raised in Delta. Once I came back home and I graduated from college, there weren't a lot of jobs here. So of course, there's the $9 an hour jobs, the $10 an hour jobs. If you got the hookup with somebody, then you can get a better job, maybe a supervisor position. But that was the thing. I wanted the ideas from the community as far as how we could make Greenville a better place because there's so much potential here. A lot of people are like, hey, it's nothing in the Delta. There's nothing to do in Greenville. But if there's nothing to do, that means there's plenty of opportunity for you to create something to do. So on top of just finding some type of way to keep me active and keep my mind busy, because my mama and my grandma always used to say, an idle mind is the devil's playground. I created Delta Think Tank. I'm still waiting for lovely, wonderful, enthusiastic, and exciting stories from people in the community. But as of right now, I'm posting more of local events and community news as well as world news.
Good. And let me ask you about your status. Are you married?
No, I'm not. Mm.
See guys, and she flicked that hair a little bit. She's not married. Okay.
Not married.
And if you're out there, leave a comment because we're getting ready to get down into our discussion. Now you said that you run across a lot of people who said there's nothing to do in the Mississippi Delta, and it gives you an opportunity to create. When you talk about creating ideas, a lot of people have a lot of great ideas, but they need people to cultivate that greatness within them. And what you're doing is giving them information, like you said, local events that may be going on. Say, for instance, uh, you know someone who has been incarcerated and they're now free and they want the record expunged or whatever. You post information like that. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. One thing that I know I recently posted, I think they're starting the Worship on the Water up again. I probably missed it. I really wanted to go. But pre-pandemic, I'll say that a lot of people would gather down on the levee. It's an event that the mayor of Greenville, Eric Simmons, started. So I think they kind of boosted that back up. I'm not sure if it was here. Like I said, I don't want to give any false information because it's been a minute. But just as far as community events goes, whatever is going on in the community, since there isn't a lot to do here, quote unquote, I try to make sure that whatever is going on, that it's in the loop, that people know about it.
Absolutely, and we need to know that. And for those who are out there, just know that there are avenues you can go down other than traditional ways of finding out information, and that's the way the world is moving now, more towards social media. I remember when I was in journalism, studying in journalism, traditional news was the way to go, right? Trying to be a news reporter at an actual station was the way to go. Well, news evolved, and we began to see CNN do I reports, meaning they would take raw footage from someone who was on the actual scene of an event, and they would bring that into their news feed, and they would feed it to their audience and let them know, hey, you don't have to be a reporter just to let us know what's going on at CNN. We got you back. And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
I know then that that cable thing was going to take a turn, meaning, they were arguing with the clients and the investors about doing a la carte, meaning that if you want to get 5 stations for cable and you only watch Lifetime, Hallmark, CNN, Fox, the History Channel, I'm just calling out what I like, right? And so, say for instance, I wanted like documentary channel, stuff like that, and I didn't need all of the rest of it. The cable companies were so against it, right? And I know why is because they would have lost so much money. Well, what has happened is with all of the technology, it forced their hands. So now you got people watching TV on apps. They're no longer going through the traditional way. And I said all that to say this, with you giving us the information on the local level that we possibly need to get those expungements, to find out who's hiring, to know when to go to a job fair, to know about worship on the water. We are looking to people now like yourself to keep us informed,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And so if you're out there, we're asking that you please go to Delta Think Tank on social media, on Facebook, right on social media, and you look her up and you start liking. So when she has something that's going on in the Mississippi Delta area, and especially Greenville, you will know what is going on in your city. Now, something crossed your desk today. What was it as it relates to Greenville? Did you want to share that?
Yeah, sure. And I'll pull it up specifically because I don't want to misquote anything. But
Oh,
it's more
I'll put
of,
you in.
let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they're taking away a couple of the local stations here. I want to say, um, let's see. But yeah, they're taking away a couple of the local stations. They're not taking them away altogether. But specifically, I think ABC and CBS and NBC are a couple of them that are going to be affected, and Delta's as
Mm-hmm.
well. So I'm believing and I'm assuming that that's the Delta News. And I saw where one of the anchors, she actually posted a video on Facebook, asking the
Mm-hmm.
people in the community to call and like let them know like, hey, we want these channels here in Greenville, Mississippi, in the Delta, because we look to them for entertainment, for news, just conversation overall, or just to be enlightened, I guess you could say, stay in the loop on what's going on. So for them to be
Mm-hmm.
taking those local shows away, it really sucks. I know for me, I was raised without cable, so PBS and all the good local channels, it taught me a lot. It gave me a different perspective
Listen,
on life at a young age. So it's very vital,
listen.
especially for young kids.
Yes, it is very vital. We need that PBS. I was a PBS kid. They didn't call it that back then, of course. Um, but
It
we
was
were
MPB then, I want to say.
yes, MTV broadcasting. Listen, Mississippi Public Television, MPB. And so what we would do was sit there, we would watch Captain Kangaroo, we would watch Elmo, we would watch um of course Sesame Street, um, and Bob Ross. Honey, I paint right now because I was inspired by Bob Ross. I paint right now because we had Bob Ross, and it will put me to sleep because his voice is so soothing.
All the
And
time.
I even have my children watching Bob Ross,
Yes.
right? So those stations are important for our children with learning minds. Man, they're learning and soaking up things. And so those stations are important. And of course, we need the news. We need that. Who's going to go out and get all of that news?
I would love for someone to send me a couple of stories, not on a competitive level. Delta News, I love it. I love the
Right.
talent here. But
But
nonetheless,
hey,
as far as local
there's enough
stories or like
around.
community events or anything that's going on, it couldn't. I mean, it doesn't have to just be here in Greenville. It could be anywhere. Um, what's close, Cleveland, Greenwood, whatever is going on. Like I said, I post world news and local news, so whatever is going on, where we as people still need to remain in the loop no matter what's going on with the network right
That's right.
now, which of course we all know they're being a bit extra. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, we need those. So if you guys have any stories or just have any insight that you want the community to know about, or any problems that you feel
Mm-hmm.
like need to be fixed, or any
Mm-hmm.
suggestions or ideas on how we can make the city better overall, even the people better overall, I love to get them. I would love them.
Yes, absolutely. And uh, it's Black History Month. What comes to mind for you when you think of Black history?
Well, okay. So I'll tell a story kind of similar to what I was telling you at first. With the Black history that I was learning, I wanted to learn more of it. I've always been a deep thinker. I'm a researching person. So if you tell me one thing, then I want to go and find out the rest of the endings that go along with the story. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing that really just boosted it off, I was sitting in class and my professor at Ole Miss was saying how there was a global slave trade. And I was like, well, how can a slave have a slave? And he told me he would speak to me after class. So once I made it home, I did a bit of research on my own, and it brought me to this video on YouTube called The Law of the More, and it changed my
Mm-hmm.
life drastically.
Oh.
I kind of had to slow down with a little bit of it, because I would get too deep. I'm one of those people. Once I know, I want to keep finding, like a truth seeker. But sometimes you're not
Mm-hmm.
ready for certain levels of the truth that comes with maturity. So only bite down what you can, what you're able to chew. But Black
Mm-hmm.
history, it is so colorful. It extends beyond what we're taught in school. It extends beyond the boundaries of geography, of the time limits that we're constantly told, or the time limits that are
Mm-hmm.
placed on it. So, for most people, I would say, even though you're taught or told something, always dig deeper. And there's so much. It's so rich. We're such a rich culture of people. So it definitely
Mm-hmm.
helps to build. And going to Valley, there's nothing like being cultivated and nurtured by your own people. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So do not sleep on HBCUs, especially in VSU. Like,
Hey, listen, HBCUs are on the come up, and I know we know that because we're looking at Prime Time, who was an NFL, he's
yes,
an NFL
mhm.
star, former Super Bowl champion, all of these things, and he is now a head football coach at Jackson State University.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then, we have a lot of rich history with HBCUs. Of course, with Mississippi Valley State University, we're known for Jerry Rice and Coach Willie Totten. Now, just recent here, we have our Vice President,
Yes, ma'am.
Kamala Harris, who went to Howard University.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And so HBCUs are on the come up. Don't sleep on your HBCUs now. Don't sleep on them. Now that we're talking about Black history, I don't know if it's something that's um I hear some feedback from your end. Is
It's
it
my
something
dog.
dangling?
No, I
Some
don't have
fan?
anything dangling. I don't know. I don't know.
It's I don't hear it anymore. Yeah, now I hear it again. Well, anyway, um, speaking of Black History Month, when I think of Black history, I think of unsung heroes like my father, um, other people in my local community who made a difference, who who were overlooked by mainstream media, if you will.
Yes, ma'am.
But my father, he was a part of the civil rights movement. He was a field reporter, when just like uh, Annie Lou Hamer, they reported on the same paperwork. I saw my father's name, a name in between, and Annie Lou Hamer. I
Wow.
said, "Wow!"
That's
But
my.
I know I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. My father ended up in a penal farm, which is a prison in Arkansas. Uh, and this was because, going back and taking names and figuring things out, and you have to report back. He was reporting back to New York. They were reporting to New York. Okay, what was happening? Um, they were reporting to different places. I know SNCC, NCC, was a student organization that they were a part of, making sure that they kept what was happening. Now, my father is in uh he's at Tougaloo. They have documents of him where he is archived at Tougaloo USM, and they wrote about him in a book that I purchased. I purchased that last book
Wow.
where he is actually on the cover. So when I think of Black history, every day was a history lesson in my home, growing up with my father, my mom. And my mom actually taught me my Greek alphabet when I was an 8-year-old, right? And she said she had a teacher who was an AKA, all right? going back to those HBCUs, had a teacher who was an AKA who taught him to purse. And so I don't have to look far
Right.
for Black history
Right.
because I grew up, learning about who I am early on as a little girl. And it's just amazing to be able to teach it to other children, my children, and viewers, people who are interested. Because you got people out there who were not written in books, who are not on the archives at USM and Old and Mississippi State at Tougaloo, right? And that's what saddens me. I want to find those people, right?
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
want to talk about them. Give them an opportunity to say,
Give them a
oh
voice.
yeah, I was yes, yes. Um, and so not trying to discount Dr. Martin Luther King or anybody, but we have people right here in Mississippi who were looked over, who were not talked about, who helped to push the agenda to make sure that civil rights became what it is today.
Yes,
Look,
ma'am.
now, I want to keep talking about Black history, but we're going to talk about Bridgerton.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're going to take it from the angle of Europe, how the Europeans looked at Black. Now, tell me what you know about Bridgerton, honey, because we binge watched Bridgerton. I'm telling you, and it was
It's
awesome.
so good. Like once you start, it's really difficult to stop. I won't say it's impossible, but it takes a lot of mental restraint to stop watching Bridgerton. So I just came up on it on Netflix. It was like popping up there for a couple of days. I'm like, hey, let me watch it. And once I started it,
Yes.
it's absolutely wonderful. I want to say it's set during the Victorian era, so that's one portion of it. But it's the way that the
Uh,
women are, well, the young ladies rather, are taught and groomed and raised to be chosen by a husband. In order for you
mhm.
to have certain rights back then, you would have to have a husband. So there's this girl, I can't remember her name right now, but she basically has a friend who decides to play like, hey, we're going to act like we're in a relationship so we can help you find a man, girl. But in the course of them pretending to be in a relationship, they grow fonder and
Uh-huh.
fonder of each other, and their relationship is based on such, having a wonderful friendship, which our relationship should be anyway. But it's the depth
Right.
and the principles that come out in the show, especially with there being uh, black royalty more than anything,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of these shows they don't show black people in royalty. Either their handmaidens or their servants. Maybe they're not even in the show at all. So that was one portion of it that I could definitely appreciate. But while the credits were rolling,
Mm-hmm.
I realized Shonda Rhimes was the producer. So I'm like, okay, that makes
And
a lot of sense now. It makes a lot of sense now.
tell us who Shonda Rhimes made.
Shonda Rhimes is a writer. I don't have to give you
Black
the
writer.
rest of it, but she's
She's a black
a
writer.
profound black female writer. Yes, yes. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of her shows are all over networks. She's just wonderful. I think she was turned down by Disney, and that was what led her to be a produced for Netflix or what have you. But that just goes to show, if somebody else turns you down, never stop with your dreams, because you never know.
That's
Even if you
right.
have to invest in them and make yourself better, and just dig deeper into your field for you to become that expert. Do that. Don't let anyone
Mm-hmm.
stop you. Even Robert Greene, and if you guys know him, he's wonderful when it comes to teaching you about human behavior. But initially, when
Mm-hmm.
he was just a journalist, one of his bosses sat him down and told him, you should probably change your field, change your career, because this is not going to work for you. And ironically enough, he wrote a book that's called 48 Laws of Power. He's written a book called Mastery, and he's done delivered like presentations to Google about it. So when you get a chance to
Wow.
look under eyes, Robert Greene, but yeah, always stay committed to whatever it is you feel like your passion is.
Exactly. And I want to thank you for uh, pointing that out because right here in the Mississippi Delta, our babies sometimes feel like they don't have anything to offer because somebody didn't come along who has 150 million friends, to say you got it going on. You have to know that you have something to offer.
And that's it.
Okay. Everybody don't know your story. So don't take it for granted that your story is not worth telling. No, tell it.
Yeah.
Somebody will pick it up. And I wanted to look over her name was Daphne Bridgerton
Okay,
was
Daphne.
the
Yeah.
character.
She was so spunky.
And
Sassy.
I love Daphne, right? And so Daphne and the Duke, right?
Yep.
Uh,
What was his name?
Bassett was
I
it
know
Duke?
they call
Bassett.
him the Duke.
Well, y'all gotta go watch it anyway, so we ain't gonna tell y'all everything. But Simon, the Duke named
Yes.
Simon Bassett. He is a black guy who was had inherited a royal kingdom, right? He was a duke.
Yeah.
And so she grew up in a house where, it was a man, pretty nice home. She didn't know who he really was. All she knew was her brother was friends with this guy.
Yeah. They went to
Like you
school
said,
together.
they made this deal, right? Where, hey, she didn't have any gentleman callers, is what they called it back in the day. And so anyway, with that being said, his father died. His father was really mean to him, and so he was a hard person to love. He was a really hard person to love. And so with that being said, you know, you had he had an uphill battle trying to be to the Duke because the Duke really wasn't trying to have any children. And so he knew that if he took her as a wife, that she would want some children. Long story short, they ended up getting married and having a baby. The thing that I love about is that, like she said, they showed the fact that you had Black people in Europe who helped cultivate the place and who contributed to the greatness of Europe. And they still pay homage to the African people of African descent.
Yes, ma'am.
And the actual guy who plays the character of the Duke Simon Bassett, is from Africa. Okay. And it's just awesome how you got someone like Shonda who came along and said, let's tell this story the way it's told in Europe. And in Europe, Black people they were given so much love and respect. If you check the history, you find out that the castles that you see in Europe, you have some over in Africa already that's similar to it. The Moors helped to make or cultivate the civilization or civilizing the place, because in Europe, this is where the bubonic plague come from, the pestilence, like what we're going through right now. They tell you wash your hands, make sure you keep stay clean. Europe was not a clean place. In Europe,
Some of
you
their
had
kings were in barns. They were not in castles.
They were not in castles initially. Okay? So a lot of people don't know that. They think, oh, they woke up like that. They did not. They did not wake up like that. You had rats on the streets of London, like you do in New York now. Anyway, that's where the bubonic plague comes from. It comes from a flea that bit a rat, and the rat bit a human, and the boom, boom, boom. Right?
There's
And
a
so
show called, there's a show called Disenchantment. It's a cartoon, but it makes fun of like everything that was so wonderful and like grand about European culture. It's so funny, but it teaches you a lot though, as far as like the plague and stuff, girl. It's good. It's good.
The stuff that you called out, Law of the Moor, I'm going to watch that. Disenchantment, I'm going to look that up.
Yes,
I'm going to look up. Listen, it's so much out there, and it's being Black History Month. We are not short of or void of Black history. Honey, if you guys go and watch Bridgerton, you will see that people of African descent, even the African Americans, you had Frederick Douglass to go back for reinforcement when it came time to abolish slavery. He went over there. And then, you have Equiano. Equiano was married to a woman from Europe. He was a Black writer who wrote about his experience firsthand, being taken from his family, right? And he had been sold and free, set free, and sold back into slavery, honey. Equiano was the first Black man to start a book tour. You guys go look him up, Equiano. He is awesome. He changed the way people looked at Africans or people of African descent, right? Now, with that being said, we're gonna look up Law of the Moor. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in my algorithm once we're done.
Once you hop on YouTube.
Because that algorithm is something.
It picks up on everything.
Now, listen, and let's shift gears. Let's go back to local right quick. After community activists, what would you like to see? Because let me frame my question. Because being in Greenville, I see so much beauty in Greenville, in every neighborhood, and my heart is calling for people to donate paint to the local homes. Now, this is just me. Now, and I know you got visions for it because you are from Greenville.
Yes, ma'am.
My vision, one of my visions, let's get this landscaping looking nice on the highway, downtown areas. We got Girl Scouts, we got volunteer groups, we got people who need community service hours. Let's get these babies out here. First, let's get somebody to donate mulch. Let's get people to donate beautiful plants. Let's get people to donate this stuff to make this place look clean and beautiful. Greenville does not have to look run down. If you go to Memphis now and you are there, you don't know if you're or not. You know why? Because even there, they have standards. I don't know if it's in the city ordinance, but you have to make sure that your property looks nice. If we could get people to donate paint, plants, mulch, I believe that will help to bring the pride level up. It would help let people know that Greenville is a clean place. Greenville is somewhere we want to be. We do want our city to be, nice. Now, let me ask you, what do you see as a community activist happening for Greenville? What would you like to see happen in Greenville?
So much. I'm gonna try to say this and be politically correct. So first and foremost, the jobs. Like we have tons of restaurants in Greenville. Tons of restaurants. If you can't do nothing else in Greenville, you can eat. If you get bored, you can go and find you something to eat. If you're upset, you can find you something to eat. If you're happy, you can find somewhere to celebrate and eat. So that's one thing I feel like is kind of dampening our creative process, because if you're stuffing your emotions with food, I won't necessarily call you a stress eater, or even for myself, call myself a stress eater, but it's just that's your continuous stimulus. Stimuli. Every time you can achieve something, you want to eat. So we have these restaurants. If we could have something else besides the restaurants that bring money in,
honey,
maybe get some venture capitalists. Yes, ma'am.
If we get another restaurant out of our screen, we don't need any more restaurants or boutiques. Don't bring any more boutiques. No more restaurants.
Yes, ma'am.
Goodness gracious, I'm glad you're politically correct about it, but listen. People.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't need any more restaurants in our area. Jobs.
Yes.
I agree.
And jobs that teach you something. Like a lot of I don't want to say, a lot of mature people that I've talked to in the community. They say how young people don't want to work. They don't have the same pride about themselves and having a job as they used to. They want to work. That's why you see a lot of young people, they move, they go to Memphis because they want a comfortable lifestyle. They want to be able to come home to a safe neighborhood, like something in Memphis where you could be in a bad neighborhood, but you don't know you're in a bad neighborhood, or just to have a life that's worth living. Like, we make the best out of what's due with down here. Well, we make the best
Right.
with what we have down here. Um,
We
we
do.
find ways to enjoy ourselves, enjoy our family, enjoy our friends. Because I mean, even I was
Mhm.
riding around Greenville the other day, and I noticed, like, when it comes down to you, if you've gone to everything in Greenville, you've done everything in Greenville, the next thing for you to appreciate is the people. So I can say that's one thing that
All
we have
right.
for sure now. We may not have a level of respect for one another that we desire all the time, but there are people
But it
where
can be
they can
cultivated.
bring, right,
Mhm.
right. They still have those friendships from for years, 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 or family members, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But for me, even me being young, it was very, very depressing for me to come home. I had been in college 6 years working on my little degrees, and I came home to a
Hmm.
$9 hour job, and it was hurtful.
It's the reality.
Yeah.
It's the
And then I
reality.
would hop on social media and I would see some of my peers living wonderful lives. They're successful. I mean, everyone has their problems,
Mhm.
but or issues, because life is life. But nonetheless, like, it would do something to me. Like, man, they're doing so wonderful in their lives. Like, what am I missing out on? What are they doing that I don't know about? And it starts with self.
Hmm.
Like, no one would sit up and tell me, hey, go on Facebook, create a page where you can post nothing but
Right.
positivity for yourself and others, because I
Hmm.
realized a huge role that played into my depression was social media. There's so much out there that tells you, like, hey, you're behind on your timeline with life. You're not up here doing the things that I'm doing, so your life sucks. You see what I mean? But once you get behind the scenes, you realize, like, hey, you're a person just like I am. You get a chance to appreciate the process rather than the result. So I have a page on Facebook called the Lemon Squeeze, and that I start just for positivity, and then for the sake of the idea is making Greenville a better place. I came up with Delta Think Tank just to try to put
Hmm.
or have some interaction out there. Um, but the jobs, I know Trump has said a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of stuff I don't agree with him. I don't agree with
Okay.
his character as a person, his principles as a person. But during his campaign, one thing that he brought up as a huge issue with our community is economics. It's the money. So I mean, I don't want to say money boosts you or gives you, like, a different personality, but being comfortable knowing, like, hey, I don't have to be out here fighting or scraping or scratching to feed myself or feed my family, especially if you're a single parent in Greenville. Like, that's a whole nother level of stress that you have to deal with. There are certain
Mm.
agencies that we have in Greenville, and I won't speak on them, but they may not be the best to assist you when it comes to dealing with those stress levels. Um, but nonetheless, that's when you find ways. For me, I would go to YouTube. YouTube is free. There are so many videos, and it really takes your mind outside of being stuck in one environment. And after being in an environment that's the same and has been the same for so long, you start to mentally limit yourself. You don't have to worry about anything else that's going on because you don't feel like there's anywhere for you to go. There's nothing for you to do. So my best friend has been YouTube, my mom, my family. When we talk, we all everybody got sister problems, but nonetheless, um, that was the biggest thing for me. School and YouTube, like, just being able to expand my mind beyond my circumstances, and that's another problem that just people in general have. Like, you can get so stuck on what you see every day, the circumstances that you have to deal with, that you forget to look at the bigger picture. Like, after this circumstance is done, this is just temporary. Like, there's so much more that you could do with your life, or so much more even just imagination could do to improve your mental health. um and let's see what else in Greenville. um but I know
I
that's
wanted.
that's
I
one
wanted
thing.
to.
the jobs. Yes, ma'am.
And I just wanted to jump in because you made a great point when you talked about their the need for jobs. Um, I want a beautiful. Your perspective is let's bring some jobs here. The now I piggybacked off and said the last thing more restaurants and boutiques. Now the reality of a college graduate. You mentioned that you saw friends who were making great money and doing great, making boss move,
Yeah.
um, if you will. But reality of it is, once you graduate, you you create your own timeline. You don't allow people to tell you, oh, well, since you have a degree now, you should be um, in a two-story home, driving this type of vehicle, and with how many kids and this husband and things like that. Because everybody is not on that same wavelength,
Right.
right? Everybody don't want a husband. Everybody don't want children, right?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so I'm yelling, but let me stop. And so the reality of it is you may have to work at the grocery store. You may have to go and work at a department store. You may have to work with a mom and pop until you get a break. And the thing that I always want to know, what do we need to do to keep our people right here in this area of the Mississippi Delta? We need to bring more corporations here who don't mind paying our babies, paying our people. Show love to your people. If you love your people, bring more jobs, bring good paying jobs for those who have a high school diploma. All right? Bring jobs for them. Bring jobs for the ones who have the bachelor's degree. Bring jobs for them, the ones with the PhDs. Bring the jobs, because there's no way I could rest easy at night knowing that I'm okay. But the people, who are around me are suffering to some degree because I'm hearing people say that they are at the poverty level and they're working two jobs. There's no way we should have to work two jobs and the cost of living is not even
Just to
high in
float.
this area.
No, ma'am. That's just to float above water, just to think you're comfortable.
Check to check. Middle class are living check to check. Middle class, check to check. If we can get people in here to show us how to budget our money, to talk to our children in the school system about how to budget a checkbook, how to, bring in fake money. This is what they did for my daughter in when she was in school. They had this thing in the gymnasium where they gave them so much money. And it's easier to do it now virtually. They gave them so much money, and if they had something left, that's what they got to keep. And so my daughter came home. She said, "Mama, I didn't have cable." She said, "I had lights, water, gas. I I had a I don't even know that she had a car, but it takes her to tell that story." And she said, and that helped her. She's a grown woman, and to this day, she knows how to budget her money. We have to love on our children, show them the way. But anyway, I could go on and on about that.
Yes,
Look,
ma'am. There's a
let's talk.
Korean style of budgeting. I think it's called Kukamoto or something like that. But after one war, like just completely demolished Korea. There's this lady, I think she was a housekeeper or something like that, but that was how she learned
Mm-hmm.
to like budget her money. So everything that she spent, she would go through and make note of it to see where her expenses were and to balance the money that she was making, how much money she wanted to make. And then it proved it so to like I think the entire country has like adopted that style of dealing with money. It's simple basics that grandma already taught us to do, but it's just the commitment and the consistency of dealing with it. One thing that I think for Greenville is the profit. We have a lot of for-profit companies that are here in Greenville, but people aren't making the money that would keep the for-profit businesses here, if that makes sense. Like there isn't enough money that's being generated consistently to keep those companies like thriving. So one idea that I think we need some more nonprofits down here, because we can get federal
Wow.
money, grant money to the city. That's free money in the city to make it a better place. And now that you have a nonprofit, you can turn that money over and you can have more for-profit businesses here. But yeah, like with that, I think I wish more. We didn't get a chance. I didn't do that in high school. Fortunately, my mama was old school. She graduated high school when she was 16, went to Alcorn. So, back in the gap, they got that money down, they add down. Like, I go to Walmart with my mom sometimes, and she'll tell somebody,
Mm-hmm.
hey, give me that dime back and take this quarter. And she threw them all away. As far as getting the change back, I'm like, Mom, we can't add that fast. I'm smart, but I can't add that fast. I need a calculator. But
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah, that's one style. I wish we had done that. But I think we just don't think about how we think about money for right now. We don't think about long term, like generational money. And I think even if we think about it, it seems so
Belts.
unattainable that we just stop ourselves from wanting to do it, or at least get started. Like the richest people in the world, they've messed up multiple times. You can't let failure be the reason why you stop or decide not to keep going through with it. But just gotta look at
Eggs.
it bigger picture.
Where can we find you? I know that you mentioned Lemon Squeeze. You mentioned Delta Think Tank. Tell everybody where we can find you. And do you have any final words before we go?
So most of the time I'm on Facebook all the time. There's so much information. There's so many videos. So my name is LaSharda Leasy on Facebook. I have two Facebook pages. One is an old one, but if you see one where I have a yellow shirt on, that's the newest one where you can reach me. The Lemon Squeeze is spelled out exactly. I wrote a book. It's about 15 pages or so, full of positive affirmations based off of me starting that whole little idea in that Facebook page. But that's there too. Then there's Delta Think Tank. So if you want to reach out and send me your stories or some community events that may be happening with your church or anything that's going on where you feel like, hey, I want to try to get this out because I need stories. I want more people to come and follow it so that we can get it out, no matter what's going on. I do have a cell phone number, but I don't know if I want to give my cell phone out. But just hit me up on Facebook, and I'll do my best to try to respond and reach out to you.
And thank you so much for that, everybody. If you're out there and you're tuning in, we were just talking to Miss LaSharda Leasy, and she was telling us again, if you should be able to see it on your screen, about Delta Think Tank and Lemon Squeeze. And she's a community activist from Greenville. So reach out to her. Let her know if you have some information that is community worthy. Okay, so that we can make sure that she disseminates this information properly so that everyone can get it. And don't just go to her page, like it, share it, let people know. And we're asking that you do the same thing for the Mike magazine. And on that note, we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mike magazine. And, we're out here in the traffic. We in traffic. I'm parked right now, but we out here in traffic, making sure that we get everything that we need done. And so, just hit us up. Go watch our YouTube channel. Go look at some of the stuff that Leasy was talking about. Law of the More, Disenchantment, and Shonda Rhimes. Is it?
Yeah,
And
and Robert
also
Green.
Robert Green. Go look that up, and hopefully one day, Lisa, we'll look up and we'll see you on TED Talk.
I claim it.
You guys have a great day.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.